did. Thank you. So welcome to basic arranging in the barbershop style. Hopefully you won't be asleep by the end, or the middle, or the beginning. So
You've been muted, Karen, for some reason.
One thing, I had to do one thing.
do not mute the host, okay? How rude. How rude. I don't know, I should take that off you. Right, okay, so have a listen to this little song.
The stars will remember the night we said goodbye. The stars will remember, so will I.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. So I've been a barbershopper for 45 plus years. I know I don't look old enough. Started when I was very young. I started arranging in my 20s, and I was an arrangement judge in Labs. That's the Ladies Association of British Barbershop Singers. When I was 18, so I was one of the youngest judges. That was funny, with my sister who did it was called interpretation at the time, and arranging is now the music category. So basically it's the guts of barbershop singing. It's the guardians of the galaxy, as it were. So we're the judges are there to make sure that the songs being sung are in the barbershop style. So you might say to yourself, well, what is the barbershop style? That's a good question. So the barbershop style is different from most other choral or choirs in that the melody line is not at the top voice, it's in the middle. And above that you have a part called the tenor part, and below that you have the bass part. You also have the baritone part, and the baritone part is the notes that are left over, basically, or the notes that nobody else wants to sing. So although we say that in jest, it's actually true. It is the notes that are left over. So what I'm going to do for you today, this morning, is to take you through some pointers on how to create an arrangement of that song we've just heard. There might be a chance for some Q&A at the end. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat, and my chat monitor will field them. If I answer all your questions and there's no questions, that's absolutely fine. I don't mind that either. And if I don't know the answer, I will go find the answer. So the first thing when you're doing an arrangement is, how do I start? Where do I start? What is it I need to do? So first of all, you need to find a piece of music that you want to arrange. The one that you just heard was one that I found in a charity shop on sheet music. That's where I do all my finding of songs I want to arrange. I'm kind of obsessed with sheet music, actually. I've got stacks of it. So I would pick up a song, I would take it home, I would play it on the piano and see, those chords sound kind of nice. I like those. They would fit in the barbershop style. Fit meaning it feels, you know where it's going to go. It feels comfortable. It's like a blanket around you, and you think, oh, I could do something with that. And that piano riff there would be really nice sung as a swipe or an echo. So you get that feel for a piece of music when you hear it. So that's where I go and search for mine. I search for them on in charity shops, and then I play them online to think, actually, yeah, that's nice. So I play them on the piano, whichever. One thing I was told millions of years ago when I was just starting out arranging was that if you want to arrange a song, make sure it starts on so, and it's not a do to do song. And I thought, what does that actually mean? What it means is, there's two things. What it means is that the first note of the chorus does not start on the actual key note. So the key note is known as the root. And the first note is so, which is do, re, mi, fa, so. So it should start there, or it can start on mi, but it doesn't start on do. If you get a song that starts on the root note and ends on the root note in the chorus, it will be so widespread, you wouldn't be able to sing it. So that's the reason for having a so to do song or a so to so song. And that's basically all there is. It's so you can sing it. If it's do to do, it's too widespread. So that was one thing that stuck in my my mind for many years. And it was Russ Forrest that told me that. I don't know if anyone remembers Russ Forrest. Great arranger. No, okay, just me then. Never mind. Okay, so I've talked about what makes it a barbershop arrangement. So the tenor is above, the bass is below, and the baritone kind of does all the filler bit, like polyfiller. It's also, barbershop music is also pretty homophonic. So it goes words all the way. There's no doo-wop, there's no beatboxing, there's no really interesting things that you hear in a cappella singing. So it's barbershop, the barbershop movement's kind of going more towards a cappella, but competitively, it has to still be mainly homophonic, meaning everybody sings words at the same time, except when there's swipes or echoes where you're kind of repeating words, or there's some little back patter in there. And the back patter thing kind of happens when you hear an arrangement and you hear the piano bit in the background, you think, oh, that would make a nice back patter section. So you can add that into your arrangement. But generally, all words sung by all parts all of the time. Are you with me so far? Excellent. Good. We'll get onto some stuff in a minute. Okay, so where did I get to? So once you've done it, once you've done your arrangement, let's say you've just created the most beautiful arrangement and you want to publish it. You think, well, where do I go for that? So the first place to go for that is on a site called arrangeme.com. Okay, and it's part of Sheet Music Plus. So you might have all heard of Sheet Music Plus, where you can go and buy arrangements. ArrangeMe is the place where you can upload and publish your arrangements that connect to Sheet Music Plus or Sheet Music Direct. And that company is owned by Hal Leonard, who owns pretty much most of the world's population of music. Okay, so if you find that song on arrangeme.com, then you can publish it there, and they take care of all the copyright, all the publishing, everything. You don't have to worry. You just put it on there, they sell it, and you get a commission from that sale. Okay, so you don't have to worry. It's much better than it was in the old days when you had to get your own copyright sorted and your own permissions before you could sell an arrangement. You can still do that if the arrangement's not owned by Hal Leonard. You can still do that. You can get your own copyright sorted by writing to the publishing house or the copyright holder, and the Performing Rights Society are very useful in finding information, or even Wikipedia and places like that can tell you where things are now held. So there's whys and wherefores and hows and do's that you can do. I would go for Sheet Music Plus, and I probably only ever publish stuff that I know I could put on there because it's easier. So, or the other thing you could do is keep it to yourself and never let it see the light of day. There's probably millions of arrangements out there that have done that. So what is the theory? Now we're on to now you're still awake and with me. What's the theory behind arranging a song in the barbershop style? Well, I'm going to tell you how I do it. Completely different to how Simon does it. I pick my song. I work out the harmonic highway. I'm going to show you a slide here. How exciting for you. Let's ping that slide up. Screen 2. Okay, you should be able to see my blank screen at the minute. And here is said sheet music I was played to you earlier. Okay, the stars will remember the night we said goodbye. The stars will remember, so will I. That's all we're going to do. And you'll notice on the sheet music, we've got the piano accompaniment, and we've also got the chords written in. And we've also got the guitar, well, actually they're ukulele chords up there because it's an old piece of music, 1946. So that's all the information you would need to arrange a song from. And that bit there is the harmonic highway. So the G plus, the C, the A minor, D minor 7, G7, all of these little notes. That's the harmonic highway. So that's what the get back to you now. That's what the composer feels where the music should go. And as you heard, that is where the music goes. And you heard it flows very nicely. It's got some lovely sevenths in there. Barbershoppers love the seventh chord. So it's got loads of those. We love that. And in the way I do it, in the way I used to do it in the old days, was write the music out by hand in a book and then work out what the parts were above it. Don't have to do that now. I still like to do it because I might make mistakes. I like to rub out. I like the very tactile side of things. But you can get programs like Finale or MuseScore, and there's probably other, Sibelius, is that another music program? So you can download those. MuseScore is good. It's free to download, and it's not too difficult to get used to using. I use Finale. I've been using it for so many years that that's all I can actually use. So that's what I've used for this one. And I've also got Harmony Assistant, which is a mechanical voice. So what you'll hear, I've put the arrangements into the mechanical voice so you can hear that. But obviously it's better if you can get someone like Simon to record your tracks for you. Okay, because mechanical is okay, but it doesn't give you any vocal expression. It doesn't give you any emotion, but it does enable you to hear how your arrangement is going. So having worked out the harmonic highway, in fact, I'm going to share another slide with you. Oh, this is so exciting, all these slides. Where are those slides gone? And we'll start there. Okay. That one, and share sound. Okay, so this is, I created this on Finale. So this is the first, you should be able to see the melody line for The Stars Will Remember, So Will I. Yeah, you can all see that. So I've worked out the harmonic highway from the music, the actual sheet music, and I thought, okay, I'm going to put the bass in, the bass notes. And the bass notes always, usually, in Barbershop, sit on the root or the fifth of the chord. So whatever chord is playing, the bass will sing the root and the fifth of that chord. So if we move on to this one, so I've written in every single chord name taken from the sheet music. So we've got a G chord, a C chord, an A minor chord, D minor 7. So that's all the chords are. And I've put the bass on the root of every single one of those chords. And let's see, shall we play that? I'll play the mechanical voice for you so you can actually hear what that sounds like. Da, 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 da. Let's find it. Actually, first of all, let's just hear the melody line. Let me know if you can hear it. So apologies for the mechanicalness of it, but it is what it is. So this is with the bass on the root all the time. Now, I said earlier that the bass sings the root all the fifth. If you put the bass on the root all the time, this is what it could sound like, or this is what it would sound like even. Sounds okay. Could be better. There's a couple of notes in there that I think, I don't want the bass on the root there. I don't want the bass on the root here on Stars. I don't want the bass here. Where is it? On Remember. And I don't want the bass on the root at the end because it feels like it's finished and I know there's a lot more song to go. So there's 3 places I would not put the bass. I put them on the 5th at that point or some other note. Now, I mustn't get ahead of myself. So we need to build the chords. Julia.
There was just a question in the chat, which I think is pertinent for now. What actually does the root and the 5th mean? Right. Okay. So the root, if we look at this piece of this music here, I've got the first chord is a G chord. So the root would be G. The root is the keynote of the chord. So the keynote of the actual piece is in C, but the first chord is G. So the root is G.
The next chord, the chord is a C chord, so the root will be C. So it's basically the home. The fifth is the fifth note up in the scale of that chord. So the fifth note up in the scale of G, G, A, B, C is D. I had to count. The fifth in the C chord is C, D, E, F, G. Or an A minor chord, it's A, B, C, D, E. So it's literally the fifth note. Do, re, mi, fa, so. It's the so note is the fifth of any of those chords. Does that help? Cool. Okay, so how do we build chords? So all chords need 4 notes in barbershop singing. On occasion, a note can be doubled. Usually octaves. If they're doubled, occasionally you're singing the same note, but it's usually an octave. If it's on exactly the exact same pitch, then that's really few and far between. That's usually done as an arranging tool to grab your interest as you're singing, rather than to create a chord. And you need to check to see if there's any notes in the melody line that do not fit in the chord suggested. Now, example here. Da, 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 fit in the chord suggested. What I actually mean by that is could you create a chord? We'll take this chord here, the C9 chord. Okay, the melody line is on the 9th note in that chord, or the second. So C, D is the second note, but if you go up the octave, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, because it's higher up, it's the 9th of the chord. So you know that's a C9. And you're thinking a C9, that can sound quite awkward. The same with the F major 7 we've got down here in bar 6. The lead is on the major 7th, is on an E, which is right close to that F. How are we going to make a chord on an F chord when the E is actually not in a chord of F? In barbershop, that is. Okay, I'm looking at the screen. I should be looking at the camera. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to figure out how we can make that sound nicer. And there are rules about this. So rules for the 9th chord. So if you have a C9 that we have in bar 5, the 9th chord should not contain the root. So what it should not contain is the C. And what have we done? We've put the bass on the C. We need to not have that. The root chord needs to be missing from a 9th chord. What you need is the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, and the 9th. That's your 4 notes, and that will make a beautiful sound without that C in there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put the bass on the 5th, so it takes the root out of the equation. With the F major 7. It's different from a barbershop 7th. The barbershop 7th is a minor 7, so the E would be flattened. This is so complicated. It sounds more complicated than it really is. I hope I'm explaining it okay. So then F7, F major 7th, we don't want the root either, I don't think. Well, maybe we could for a little bit of jangliness, but we probably don't want the root in there. We'll see what happens later on. And F minor 7 with a barbershop 7th, yes, have the root, absolutely. F, A, C, and E flat, they are your chords. That's the chord, your notes in that chord. So F is the root, F, A is the 3rd, C is the 5th, and the E flat is the flattened 7th. That makes a beautiful chord. Okay, that's one that you hear a lot, especially in the old songs, and we love those a lot. There's also an F6 in there somewhere. The next chord along is an F6. An F6, if you had the F, the A, the C, and the D, which is in that in the melody line there, that would create an interesting chord. What you could do is you take out the 5th because it's quite close to the 6th, and you add the top root. So you have the F, the A, the D, and the top F, and that makes a nice open sound, and it's much nicer to sing that way. So there are things you can do to make these chords fit in the barbershop style. So we've established there's a couple of anomalies going on here. So what we want to do is we want to make the bass. We want to do that. We want to give the bass the 5th of the chord. So the first note the bass sings is the 5th, rather than the because it sounds nicer to go from there to the C of the next bar. And if we go to bar 5, we've given the bass the 5th of a C chord, which is a G, and it stays up there, and then it drops the octave, but it's still on the 5th of that C chord. So it's got some interest, but it's staying on the 5th. I've actually left it on the F major 7. That's interesting why I've done that. I don't know why I've done that. We'll have to see what it sounds like. The F6, it stays on the root, and the other one we wanted to change was the G at the end, the G7 chord at the end, because that makes it feel like it's going somewhere else if we don't have the bass on the root. Let's have a listen to see what that sounds like. Bass, lead and bass. Here we go. And I'm going to play the bass, the one with bass on the root all the time. See if you can hear the difference and see if you think which one sounds nicer. It's the same so far. So which one do you prefer, first or second? As in, so you do prefer, hopefully this one. The first one I played. It kind of flows better as a bass line, doesn't it? It's more horizontal in its approach, so it's not doing all of this jumping up and down. Okay, good. You're still with me? Hopefully you're all still with me. I can't see the rest of the room, so hopefully the rest of the room is still with us as well. Okay, right. On to the tenor line. Now you'll notice that I've left the baritones out completely. The baritones are always last. Even when you're singing in rehearsal, the baritone gets to sing their bit last usually. Okay, tenors, added tenor. So as I said right at the beginning, the tenor stays mainly above the lead most of the time. There are some occasions where the tenor would be below the lead. It's really not common. You want the tenor to be above the lead because the barbershop style is is what that is. So the lead stays in the middle, the tenors go above. Occasionally you'll get a lead note that goes so high that putting the tenors above that would be impossible to sing nicely. Okay, so that's why we put the tenor below the lead on those occasions. There's a chord, and I can't remember what it's called nowadays. It's changed its name, but it's where the tenor would be on the root, which rarely happens, and the lead is above them on the minor 7th. That's called, well, I can't remember what it's called now. I can't tell you what it's called, because it's wrong to say it. But it's a lovely clashy chord, and when that happens, the tenors have their opportunity to sing as loud as they want, because they're below the lead. They need to sing louder than the lead, and they're on the root at that time. So anyway, we're not going to cover that right now because that will just confuse everybody. So the tenor line needs to sit above, and usually the tenor sits kind of the 3rd above what the lead is doing. So it's like a descant, but on the odd occasion we have notes that are further apart from the lead. What you want to do is, you need to make the tenor, all lines actually, you need to make them sound horizontal so that the singer kind of feels that it goes that way rather than jumping up and down, because that's quite hard to tune. So having the tenor line nice and smooth, all the lines nice and smooth across the board is great. Let's have a listen to, the tenor line. So this is the tenor with the lead and the bass. Kind of sounds okay, doesn't it? It's not too bad. Okay, so let's have another listen to that just to get our ears in. So you're listening for the line that's above the lead lines, if you can remember what the lead line is, and just follow the music. Fabulous. Now, what do we notice about the tenor line that I've put in there? Well, we could say that the first 1, 2, 3 bars, the tenor sings the same note all the way. And you might think that's actually quite uninteresting for a tenor line, but actually it's really very interesting for a tenor line. The reason for that is that even though the tenors sing in the same note, they're not playing the same part in the chords as the music moves along. So on the first bar, they're an octave above the basses. On the C above that, that's fine. So that on the root, they can be nice and strong there. And then the second bar in an A minor chord, what note are they on? A minor, A, C. They're on the minor third, aren't they? Yep. So they're on the third. So a minor third needs to be sung quite subtly, so slightly differently to being the root, which it was before. And then on the next chord, D minor 7. So D minor 7 would have a D, an F, an A, and a C in it. D being the root, the F being the third, the A being the fifth, that's the minor third, the F being the A being the fifth, and the C is the seventh. So they're playing the root, the third, minor third, and the seventh in one sentence. So they've got little different things that they can do with their voices to make those chords fit vocally. On a piano, you can't create that, but that's really actually quite interesting for a tenor line, I think. And then they've got a little move here but in bar 4, they got a move upwards. That's because the chord changes from a G7. So a G7, they're on G, what are they on there? They're on the 5th there, and then they move up E to an E minor. They're on the root there, so they're mirroring what the basses are doing to make that sound just peachy. And it helps them get up to that, the 7th again on the F up there. So it's generally you want to keep them above the lead as much as possible, and sometimes they end up going a little high, but that's not too high for a tenor, believe me. Okay, so did you like how that sounded? Did it sound okay? Wasn't anything weird in there? Cool. Okay, now, now for the notes that nobody wants, the baritone. We love a baritone. So the baritones spend their lives flitting between the to above the basses, above and below the tenors, so kind of above and below the lead. They're the similar voice part to the lead. They have a much trickier job to do. They never go below the bass, or I should say they should never go below the bass, or the bass should never go higher than the baritone or a lead, and they would definitely never go higher above a tenor. So they need to sit in the middle like the lead line does. And they usually end up swapping notes with the lead. So they'll do the opposite of what the lead is doing in the chords. So let's have a look at with the baritone line in there as well. Haha, it's looking more like a musical score now. So let's have a look at this first bar. We've got basses on the C. I've put the baritones on the E, which is the third of the chord. The leads are on the G. We can't change them because that's the melody, and the tenors are on the C. So that's a triad chord with an octaved root. So that the first note in the bass is the root, the bar is on the third, the fifth, and the root again. Then, if you see, the basses and the tenors are exactly the same, but the lead's moved. So the baritone can't stay on the same note, the E, because otherwise it would be singing the same note as the lead. So the baritone has to move. The baritone has to go to where the bass was. And I just need to ignore that. Okay, apologies for that. So the baritone has to swap and sing the G. And then again, the lead goes back up to the G, so the baritone has to come down again. So that's what I mean by the baritone basically doing the opposite of what the lead line is doing. Not all the time, but generally that's what's happening. When you get a chord that actually does have 4 notes in it, like a 7th chord, so let's pop along to bar 4 here for that G7. We've got the basses on the root, we've got the leads are on the 5th, the tenors are on the 3rd because they have to be above the lead. The baritone, the only note that's left is the 7th, minor 7th, which is the F. So the baritone has to go there. So that's what I mean by the notes that are left, or the notes that nobody else wants, in a nutshell. But when you look at it, when you look at all 4 parts separately, they kind of flow lengthways. They go horizontal, which is what you're looking for. You're looking for a song that's easily sung by all 4 parts. So let's have a listen to that sound. See what we've got. So I'm just going to play it again without the baritone in there, and you can you can hear how empty it is. And back with the baritone. Baritone makes a difference. Fantastic. Right. Yes, Julia.
It's amazing how adding the baritone in makes everything blend together better. You don't hear the individual parts as much unless you really, really listen carefully. When you played it with just the three, you could hear all three parts quite clearly, and then the baritone goes in and it's like, it just sounds much more together.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's absolutely, that's correct. The baritone does make it. That's what makes Barbershop, is the baritone. Although we don't say that a lot, because a lot, we know what baritones are like. I am a closet baritone. I love singing baritone, but I just don't do it very often. Anyway, so to summarize, I'm going to summarize now. So what you need to do, if you want to arrange something, you find a piece of music, and that you could get your inspiration from listening to the radio, your kids or your grandkids coming playing a song. It doesn't have to be a 1940s or 30s or 20s song. They're the ones I like to arrange because I find them easier, because they fit more with the barbershop style. But you can actually make any song into a barbershop song or barbershop style song. It might not be one that you can compete with, but the basically if the melody sits in the middle and things are happening around it, it's a barbershop song, and it's homophonic. Okay, so you can find music anywhere. If you hear a piece of music, you can buy it on Sheet Music Plus or any of the sites. You can download and buy the sheet music. I would recommend buying music that has the chords written out, or the guitar chords, or piano accompaniment, so it gives you an indication of what the composer wanted the harmonies to sound like. Okay, so that's a really useful tip. Determine the range of the melody. If you do pick a do to do song, that's fine. You might have to put the melody in other voice parts to make it work. Okay, so try and pick a so to so or so to do song. They're much easier to arrange and have the melody in the lead line all the time. Look at the harmonic highway. Is it interesting? So if you took a status quo song, you might get bored after the first three bars, because it'll be C, G, F, C, G, F, G, C, G. It'll be the same three chords. Great as a pop song, but not as a singable barbershop song. It's not interesting enough. Okay. Then, would I like to sing it? That's a really good question. If you hear a song and think, I want to sing that, is there an arrangement, or can I do an arrangement of that song? And give it a go. If you want to sing it, you'll invest more time in arranging it. Follow the rules of where the parts should be. So the rules in a nutshell: tenors above the lead line, basses below the lead line, baritone flits in between where the lead is, above and below, but not above the tenor or not below the basses, and the chord structures. So make sure that a ninth, for example, a ninth chord does not have the root in it. Doesn't mean you can't have the root. It's just a rule that if you're competing with barbershop, the ninth should not contain the root. If it does, it will get marked down by the music category, possibly. Okay, depending on how well it's sung. So there's lots of variables. I would advise, if you're having a ninth, don't put the root in. It's easier that way. What else have we got? Play your finished product. and see if it flows. Play part by part, see if it flows horizontally. Think, oh, actually, no, that sounds like the tenor's going too high there. I'll need to bring the tenor below the lead there. So what do I need to do to the other parts to make that fit? Okay, so try and make it flow so that if it's sung by somebody, it's singable. And if you want to sell it, get permission. In a nutshell, get permission. Don't go giving your music away for free, because that still infringes copyright. Okay, so you need to make sure you get permission. Okay, now before we get to the next bit, if we have time, are there any more questions? Are there any questions, Julia? No? I've covered everything. Has anyone got any burning question they want to ask right now? I'm actually just checking to see if you're still awake. Yeah, okay, you're still awake because you all laughed. That's good, that's good. Okay, right, I'm going to play for you. Let's see if I can find it. Let me just get my script up and find. I'm going to play quite an old recording, actually, of the tag of this song, because this song has been arranged multiple times in Barbershop. And where is the link? There it is. Let me get that link up first. I'll get past the adverts because there's bound to be adverts. So the adverts are quite long. Okay, so this is the tag of that song, and I need to share everything. This is not my arrangement of it, just saying, it's not my arrangement, but it's an arrangement. But I thought you'd like to hear it in voices rather than not voices, so have a listen and a watch.
The world may forget you as time goes passing by. The stars will remember, and so
Okay, let's get out of that. So it might have been a bit loud. Apologies if it was a bit loud. Interestingly enough, there was a ninth in that tag, and they had the bass on the root. Don't know if you heard it. On stars, the stars, they had the bass on the lower note, which is interesting. I wouldn't have done that, but there you go. They did. So that was instant classic, and they look very young, and it was very nice. I'd like to have heard the whole song, but the tag was the only thing that was recorded. So yeah, so that's how your song could sound if you get somebody to sing it. So we've got no questions. Oh, we have a question from Julie B.
Just that word tag, what exactly is a tag? Is it just a short section of a song?
Yes, it is. It's right at the very end. So the tag is the bit at the end of the song, and is done very much in Barbershop. Every song has a tag. It basically is the summarization of the whole song, and it's a chord fest usually. People just love singing just the tag. So it's yeah, that's what the tag is. Good question, Julie.
Thank you.
There's one in from Rita. With such rules to arrange. Oh, I didn't read that. What that's Julia. What was the in the chat just now?
With such rules to arrange in Barbershop, how do you get different arrangements?
So the different arrangements, well, that's down to personal preference. So you'll get an arranger who's quite prolific in their, like let's say David Wright, for example, who always manages to find really interesting ways of singing, and he adds lots of technical things, lots of swipes and echoes and different not different chords, but you can write different chords. You don't have to stick to the harmonic highway that's been requested by the composer. You can get any sort of That's a really good question, and I'm struggling to answer it, aren't I? It's down to personal preference of what the arranger hears and what the arranger wants. Generally, you'll find most arrangers have the basics the same, but you're like with David Wright, he'll just find other interesting things to do because he's got such a fabulous musical brain, and he'll just find other ways of expressing that. Another arranger, we've got Brent Graham, a brilliant arranger, and has done the songs that everybody else has done, but just so more complex, I suppose. You can just add more things. There's quite a lot of scope that you can do. Me, on the other hand, I'm quite bog standard. I like to hear the song. It's like when you hear a jazz song and the melody goes wandering off, and you think, I just want to hear the melody. So that's what I want to do, is I just want to hear the song as it was sung once a million years ago. So it's a good question though, Rita. Thank you. Julia?
But it needs to be recognizable, doesn't it? If it's a well-known song, you expect to hear certain movements and certain words, and obviously you can change things with expression and putting funky little bits and pieces into chords, but the main melody has got to be there, because otherwise what's the point?
Well, yeah, there is, yeah, that's absolutely true. But then again, you'll get some songs that have got, I'm desperately trying to think of something. I didn't think of what any to bring to the party, but there's some songs that you can put in a lot of things, like, so The Stars Will Remember the Night We Said Goodbye. You could put in like a patter session in there, and you could, The Stars I Know Will Remember, and of the night that we said goodbye. So you can put more words in there to make it a different arrangement. Doesn't have to be exactly as was written. Melanie?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sometimes they make their introduction different, or they add a bridge or something in between that's not in the original, which makes it actually sometimes very, very nice, but not as the original was. Yeah,
I agree. And Rita's put in the question, basically not much. Yes, you can have it. You can have oohs, for example. You can have the harmony part singing an ooh while the melody sings the words for about, I don't know, 4-8 bars, a couple of times maybe. So long as it doesn't turn into an a cappella song, or a soloist song. Barbershop is 4 parts. Barbershop is homophonic. It does need to have words being sung by all the parts. So the occasional doo-wop, like an introduction, we can't do it with this song because there's no real, it doesn't call for it. We could have something like dabba 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 dum kind of thing coming on the basses as you come into the chorus, for example, like a rhythmic propellant, we would call that. So you can do things like that where there are no words, that's fine. But if it's the majority of it, if it's a doo-wop song, then it ain't Barbershop, basically. Melanie?
Does that also depend still not on the whether it's contestable or not?
Absolutely, yeah. There's lots of barbershop arrangements out there that do have lots of doo-woppy stuff, and that's because they've been arranged in the barbershop style, in that usually the melody is in the lead line, the tenors are above, the baritones are below and above the lead, etc. So the style is where the melody is and what the other parts are doing. You can have your doo-wops all the way around it. It is kind of barbershop style, but it wouldn't be contestable, because the reason it's not contestable is because barbershop is basically songs that we can sing that create overtones and harmonics and all that stuff, which you can't get with other people singing other words. Okay, so that's why you sing the same words at the same time, is so that you get those that expanded sound, is what it used to be called in the old days. So that's why. Any other questions? Okay, right. We've got a little bit of time. I'm going to briefly whiz through something that's so exciting that you're going to wonder why you've never come across it before, or you're probably going to say, yeah, I've come across that and I'd ignored it because it's too complicated. The circle of fifths. I love the circle of fifths. Every musician loves the circle of fifths, and every musician will use the circle of fifths without even realizing it, probably. Okay, there's a great site. There's a I think it's BBC Classic FM site that's got a fabulous explanation of the circle of fifths, but I kind of wanted just to basically go through what the circle of fifths is and why it's so important. So the circle of fifths is basic. I have to stop saying basically a lot. It's how songs are created. It's how music works. So we're going to take C, the key of C. Okay, the C. We'll say the C is at 12 o'clock on the circle of fifths. The C is at 12 o'clock. You go 5 notes up in the key of C. C, D, E, F, G. That's your fifth. That's at your 1 o'clock. So the circle of fifths, it goes from C to G. Yeah. So the next lot round is the 5th note up in the key of G, which would be D. That's round there. Okay. So basically, the circle of fifths is a progression that goes round in 5s all the way around back to C again. Is how it works. And the way that the musicians use it is they'll start in the key of C, will be their first, that'll be their key signature, like this one. Actually, let's show this one again. And then you'll see what I'm talking about. So the key is C. It has no sharps or flats. It's the key of C. The first chord is a G7, which is at 1 o'clock. Okay, and it's come from somewhere else, so that it's the introduction has led us to this point where it's a G chord on the, and stars is a C chord, so it goes back to 1. You have to work your way back to 1, back to root, or back to 12 o'clock. Sorry, I meant 1 as in C. So back to root, you have to work your way back to through the circle of fifths. So we're going from G, we go to C, G to C. And then from C, you can go anywhere on the clock. You can go to the G, you can go to the D, you can go anywhere all the way around. What we've actually done here, because it's an A minor, is the relative minor of C, we're staying at C. Okay, because the A minor is the relative minor of C. Just agree with me there. Okay, so from the A minor, because it's a C chord, basically, we can go anywhere, and we've gone out to D minor. Now, D minor must be the relative minor of another key, mustn't it? If A minor is the relative minor of C, D minor must be the relative minor of, I'm going to say,
F.
Is it F? Okay, cool. Is it F? No, I don't think it is F.
Tim's offering you an answer to that.
Please answer my question. What's the answer?
You need to unmute.
I thought G, but what was the question again?
What's the relative? What is D minor the relative minor of? I think it's G as well.
1 sharp.
Sorry, I've gone the wrong way.
So it's complicated, but it doesn't have to be. But yes, I think G is the major chord of the D minor relative. And that was completely Yoda-ish. That was the wrong way around, I should have said. D minor is the relative minor of G. So what we've got from a C here, we've stayed at the C end, and we've moved round to the 5th, the G chord, but it happens to be the relative minor of that. And we need to get back to C at some point. And what we've done is we've stayed at the G chord, we're staying at the G chord. Oh, we have an E minor in there. What the hell's going on there? How are we going to get from G7 to E minor? So we need to know what the relative minor that is to another. It's getting really, really complicated. So basically, all your minor chords are in relation to a major chord, and it's the major chord that's interesting, that is around the clock. Melanie?
Is that the chord progression everybody talks about? Is that why that is, or is that something different? I
don't understand your question.
Well, you sometimes say the chord progression has to be in a certain way. Is that because of the circle? Because of
yes.
You have to go back to the. That's what. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it works. Everything works its way around the clock. I mean, this is actually it's too. It says it's quite complicated example because the minor chords that are in there. But if you go from a C chord and you go out to a D chord, which is you don't have to go through G to D to get to D. You go from the root to any chord, but to get back to C again, you'd have to go through G to get back to C. You have to go that way round. That's one of the rules. There are other rules. If you went out to the D chord, you could go to the opposite on the clock and then come back to the D to get to the C. So basically all of those chords around the circle of fifths have to be used to get back to home. I think actually the better example would be to show you that website that I was thinking about. So let me just stop the share at the minute and I'll quickly, because I know I've confused myself, let alone you. So let me just find that little thing there. I thought I should have just stuck with my words. All right. Right. There we go. That is going to be of great help. Share my screen again. Here we go. So they haven't got it at 12 o'clock, but say we're in the key of C, and which is A minor, and we've gone round to G in that music, haven't we? So we went from C to A minor to D minor 7. So D minor actually is F. So good old Julia was right. And then from there, D minor, we went back to, I think we went back to C. Then we went out to G. We went to E minor, which is the relative minor of G. That's why I couldn't figure it out, because I thought we'd already done it. And then in the end, we go back to C again. So we're hovering around those, and I'm looking at an angle. So we've got those three chords play a great part in the beginning of this song. And because they're all really close to the C, we can jump from one to the other. We can jump from the C to the G, back to the C. We can jump from the C to the F and back to the C. What we can also do, if we wanted to, is from the C, we could go across to the G flat, and we could work our way back through the chord progression, round the clock, back to C again in a logical fashion. But it doesn't mean that every song has to go from, if it goes to a G flat, that it would go that way. Not necessarily. It can go back to the C. It can go back to the G flat. It could go to the B flat. It could go across the clock to the F and back to the C. So there's a lot more to it than just going round the clock in a logical fashion. It is logical, but it's all the most important thing I would say if you're arranging is to use your ears. What sounds good to you? Okay. So the circle of fifths is a big subject, as you can imagine, and we haven't got time for such a big subject right now, but it's a good thing to have a look at. That website is the classicfm.com, Discovering the Circle of Fifths. It's a really good read, she says, for someone who likes geeky stuff like me. So summary at the end would be, what have we learned so far? Find your music. Determine the range. Harmonic highway, is it good? Is it interesting? Do you want to sing it? Follow the rules of barbershop. So follow the rules where you come across a 9th or a 7th or a 6th. Play your finished product to see if you like it, see if you want to tweak it. Are the parts horizontal? Are they singable? And if you want to sell it, get permission. And that basically is it, folks. Hopefully that was kind of interesting. Excellent. Glad.
Julie's got a question and Mel's got a question.
Okay. Go ahead, Judy.
Yeah.
Julie.
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
If you don't want to sell your arrangement, but you still want to be able to sing it, is that allowable?
If you want to sing it to yourself in your home, that's fine. If you want to perform it out with a group, you have to get permission.
Right. So it needs to go through that process that you spoke about.
It does, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
okay.
you kind of have to sell it to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. You are the customer of your arrangement if you're going to sing it with a group. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
No worries. And who else had a hand up? Mel.
Just if there's no other questions, we need to take a picture. That was my job. So
We do need to take a picture. I'm glad you found it interesting, Naomi. I'm glad you're all still awake. I think we can